everyone. I'm a few minutes early for Books Live with Katie, so I am just going to wait a minute before I get started. This is the West Dallas Public Library's kind of monthly book talk show, for lack of a better word. I will talk about some book recommendations based on topics as well as some book suggestions, and then I will talk about what I'm reading. Of course, during the course of the video, you're welcome to comment with your questions, or if you have reader's advisory things or suggestions as well, and I'll do my best to answer any questions. If not, I will provide my email in kind of a wrap-up after this, so you can email me any questions you have. Today, we are going to be talking about fall books and some scary titles. I will, from the beginning, say I do not like scary books. I am a giant wimp. The best way I can describe this is if you're familiar with the show Friends, which I'm sure most people my age are, and younger, I guess is a big thing now, Joey puts the book in the freezer, so I definitely have my freezer books, so we'll talk about some of those. I'm going to check my watch, and it's 10 o'clock on the dot, so I'm going to get started. Again, my name is Katie. I am one of the librarians here at the West Dallas Public Library, and this is my Books Live with Katie, which is kind of just me talking about book recommendations, some stuff I've read, and suggestions for you. Of course, again, if you have questions, go ahead and type or contact me on Facebook, or I'll provide my email later. Okay, let's get started. Fall books. So I'm going to start with what I'm going to call the most fall of fall books. It is a comfort read. It is the equivalent of drinking apple cider or a pumpkin spice latte. It is Pumpkinheads by Rowell and illustrated by Erin Hicks. What I love about this book is it is about two high school seniors who work seasonally at a pumpkin farm, and it's their senior year, and as they go through this final night, the male main character, Osiah, he's decided he's going to finally talk to his crush. And his best friend at work, Deja, is going to help him. But she's amazing because it's just her desire to experience everything that the Fall Fest has for that one last year. And they're like this kind of 80s movie high school friendship where it's like, we're only friends during pumpkin season, and we're only going to they don't talk to each other the rest of the year. And it's very high school, but it also has that feel of that one great last night before the next big thing in their life. Again, I really compare this to a slice of pumpkin pie. It is sweet, it is fast, you will read through it. Everything about it just screams fall. So if you're looking for that light, fun fall read, Pumpkinheads by Rowell and Erin Hicks. It's a graphic novel. I promise you will read it very quickly, and you'll feel warm and fuzzy afterwards. Now, like I said, scary stuff for fall, for Halloween, spooky. Graphic novel, different vein. Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. Oh, I've got a lot of reflection going on here. Through the Woods. So for as warm and cozy as Pumpkinheads is, Through the Woods is dark. It is sparse. It is gothic horror, pretty much. The best way I can compare this to is the stories you tell around the campfire with friends or family, or sleepovers, kind of that oral tradition where over time these stories got handed down. You have the father who goes away and never returns, and what happens to his family in the winter. You have the bride who's kind of haunted by the voice behind the walls whenever her husband reads. This is dark, this is sparse, this is creepy and eerie. There's 7 stories that aren't really interconnected. They take place across different time periods. I just want to show you some of the pictures because they're just gorgeous. So again, for as warm and fuzzy as the other book was, this is sparse and haunting. This is the feel of, again, a haunted house, ghostly, gothic. Sorry, I'm not being really good with description words. I should look at my notes quick. So I highly recommend this to those of you looking for more horror stories or even more like haunted stories. It's kind of one of those stories that tells by the not telling. And also for those that like that kind of story, why not try something like Haunted Wisconsin? I love these books, the real ghost stories, like, ooh, this happened, this house is haunted, these are the sites to go. We have a whole collection of these at the library. I just pulled this one because it was Haunted Wisconsin. Wisconsin. So if you're looking for those kind of ghost stories, that haunted, that creepy, that telling, the not telling, the voice coming from who knows where. So Through the Woods, Haunted Wisconsin, those are those kind of creepy, eerie books. On to legitimate horror and freak out books. Daniel Kraus. If you haven't read books by Daniel Kraus, I highly recommend him. If you're familiar with the movie The Shape of Water, which I believe won Oscars a few years ago, he is one of the co-creators of that movie, to kind of put it in perspective. The book I read that really stuck with me is called Rotters. I don't know if you can see the cover with the gravestones. This book is about a young man who is forced to move in with his father after his mother dies. He doesn't know much about his father. His mother was a nurse in Chicago, and it's kind of her dying wish that he goes and lives with his father. He gets to this town kind of not expecting a warm welcome, but it's like when he gets there, his father isn't waiting. He has to walk down a dusty path. He gets the feeling that no one really knows who his father is. And there's really good reason for that. His father is a grave robber, and he has this horrible kind of smell about him in this horrible way. But what you end up getting is this dark kind of underbelly of society that brings up a lot of great questions. Of course, as you're reading that, you're just more grossed out and a little bit horrified. But it really talks about a lot of the things we don't talk about life and death and why we glorify some things and not others. It's one of those books that feels so real that you kind of have to stop and go, whoa, some of this stuff can't really happen, even though some of it probably does. I don't know. Horrifying, a little bit gruesome, but Daniel Kraus is a great author for horror, and I highly recommend Rotters. So this is the time of year where you probably get a lot of people looking to reread books about classic monsters. And of course, what kind of former English major would I be to not talk about books like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Bram Stoker's Dracula? However, instead of picking up those classics for yet another year, why not read about the stories behind them? One of the things I love is in the past couple of years, there have been tons of books about Mary Shelley and the making and writing of Frankenstein, whether it was the community of authors she worked with. And as a side note, if you haven't seen the Comedy Central show Drunk History's version of this, I highly recommend finding it. It is absolutely hysterical when they talk about the writing of Frankenstein and the portrayals of the different characters who were there. The lore is she was at a haunted weekend, and it was whoever could write the scariest story, and with all these authors that we now know as part of the canon. So, highly recommend that as a side note. But if you want to get into the more, I guess, factual side and not dramatic readings, here's one book, Making the Monster, the science behind Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And there are tons of books like this, again, that talk about the writers or just the time that she wrote it in and how it had such an impact on both literature and cultural pop culture. That's, I guess, the best way to say it. On the same note, if you're looking for the vampires, who was Dracula? So I'm dealing with some sunlight here, and it's not going very well. Who was Dracula? So this is a look at how Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, the real story he took it from, the real people that might have influenced it. This is one of those where it's kind of like fact and fiction meld together. So again, instead of reading Dracula, or in addition to reading Dracula or watching a Dracula film, why not look a little bit behind the scenes of how Dracula was written and researched and so forth. Okay. So for those of you looking for true horror books, I will apologize. I checked out a couple books and I did not get to read them, so I will recommend them based on recommendations. First up is Clown in a Cornfield. Just like the title sounds, this feels like that campy horror movie, Don't Look Behind You, Scream, where you have high school kids in a situation, someone's out murdering people, and in this case, it's a clown in a cornfield. I'm trying to check my notes quick. It's described as an old school slasher movie in a book. It's a new book, so definitely put your name on the list. I had to get it from the library. So Corn in a Clown Field for your traditional horror readers. If you're looking for something a little bit of a slow burn and a long family saga, The Good House. And I actually might read this one only because I was told it was character driven and it's slow burn, so I'm hoping that I don't get scared too easily. But again, I'm a wimp. I will probably give up if it gets too scary, because that is me. A slow burning, multi-generational character forest horror book and an epic ghost story. So, The Good House. Again, I will put all of these in a blog post where I'll have the titles, and then you can, of course, go back and see if there's something you'd want to check out. Okay, so one of the things this brought up as I was talking with a coworker is I don't like scary books, but there are books to me that are really scary that aren't necessarily true horror. And a lot of them are dystopian books that hit too close to home. And the first one I thought of when I was talking about books that honestly scared me is M.T. Anderson's Feed. If you haven't read this book, it is an older title. It's about a futuristic society where a bunch of high school kids go to the moon, and this feed they have implanted in their head is like internet in your brain, and they have them since birth. It malfunctions, and they all get stuck on the moon. And this group of kind of popular upper middle class wealthy kids meet a young woman who got her feed late in life, and she has some health problems, but this young man Titus kind of falls for her, and they become friends. And she kind of opens his eyes to this other world that's out there, that, while he and his friends are partying and buying things and doing things that are cool, there's war, there's strife, there's, everyone has these weird welts on their body, there's kind of a plague going on, and part of it is because of the technology and how people feel in this worldwide poverty. And as I'm saying it now, it feels really close to home. And if you have fears about technology, if you kind of see the people not being aware of what's going on them, this is that kind of book. I was lucky enough to once meet M.T. Anderson at a conference, at a librarian thing, and I told him this is the scariest book I ever read, and he said, yeah, that's what I wanted you to think. So if you're looking for more dystopian horror, Feed by M.T. Anderson, highly recommended by me. It's a great book. And again, it's one that'll make you think and maybe not sleep for a while. Okay, let's end with a much more uplifting story, or at least hopeful story. The most fall of fall books, to me, is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. I love this book. If you have a chance to listen to it on audio, it is one of the best audiobooks I have ever listened to. It's a dual narrated book. There are two characters. You have Sean Kendrick, who is a young horse trainer who lives on Thisbe Island, whose father died some years ago during these horse races. And then you have Kate Connolly, who is recently orphaned and lives in this house with her two brothers on the Thisbe Island. And every November 1st, these bloodthirsty, cannibalistic seahorses emerge from the sea, and the people of the islands of Thisbe catch them and train them for this big race. And everything on this town surrounds around this race. It's kind of desolate when it's not this time. They have a tourist season in the summer, but everything there is about this race. And both Sean and Puck are kind of racing for their futures, their lives, and it's just one of those grab you in. You want to befriend both of them, and while it's not romance, it's really more about the two characters. You're just, you're just yelling at the book, come on, you two, get together. Highly recommend. It is atmospheric. It is, if Pumpkinheads is a pumpkin spice latte, this is your Thanksgiving dinner. It's everything you need in a book. Rich characters, rich setting, dramatic plot. And it is a couple boxes of Kleenex for this book, because I sometimes get sad just thinking about the ending of the story, even though it is, no spoilers, but it's hopeful, but it's dramatic and sad. So if you pick up one thing from my entire book talk today, The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, and listen to it on audio, it is one of the best books I've ever read, and it is one of the greatest fall books ever. It would be a great book to pick up November 1st, because I believe that's when the story starts. November 1st, these ponies emerge from the sea. It's everything: horse racing, love, drama, small town gossip. So, yeah, this is probably, if you take anything away from this book talk, Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. Again, I will put all of these in a blog post, and it'll link to Facebook so you can see the titles. There is a small display where we put some of these titles in the library. So, now on to how I read read based on what I said last month, and what's on my next to read pile. First off, there were two books I talked about, M.K. Jemison's The Fifth Season and Want by Lynn Steger Strong, and I did not finish both of them. Unfortunately, just as life happens, we had one of those family events, and I didn't read as much as I wanted to. I did read a couple books that I hope to talk about in the next couple months, so I did finish a few that I didn't talk about, but I'm saving them for later Books Live with Katie, so what better reason to check back in with what I'm reading. I do plan on finishing the fifth season. It is a very good book. It's not what I expected. It's a little bit darker and more slow moving, so it took me longer to get into. So it's still on my pile of to be read. Want, unfortunately, had a wait list. Or fortunately, maybe some of you are reading it, so let me know if you read it. So that's one I just didn't finish. Okay. On my to be read list, it is random right now. I have 3 books that I'm super excited to read. The first one is Pretty Funny for a Girl by Rebecca Elliott. Rebecca Elliott writes books that my kids love. This series called Owl Diaries, which is for beginner readers. So when I saw she wrote a young adult book, I was like, sure, let's read it. I've read every other book she's written. However, it is about a girl who wants to be a stand-up comedian to get closer to a guy, and I'm like, okay, first high school Katie wanted this book, and now adult Katie is going to 100% read it. I will probably read it this weekend. Up next is Colin Jost of Saturday Night Live fame. I think he does Weekend Update, in addition to being married to maybe Scarlett Johansson. He wrote a book called A Very Punchable Face. I love books by comedians just to begin with, kind of as witnessed by reading a book about a girl who wants to be a stand-up comedian. But with the title, like, Such a Punchable Face, and him being a comic writing a book, I just checked it out because although I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in a few years, it just sounded like exactly something I would enjoy. And finally, kind of the trifecta of books I love. I love books about librarians and love. I wonder why. And there was a book by Kathryn called, What You Wish For, about a school librarian who has this weird past with a brand new principal, and they have to clearly come together to save the school. I hope that's what this book is about, because I've been tricked before. Okay, so that's my up to be read for our next meeting. We're not meeting the last week of November because Thanksgiving, and we're all too busy. However, the first week of December, starting November 30th, I am going to do a special week-long books to give. You do not have to handle me live every day. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'll be posting short videos with suggestions of books to give to people in your life based on age groups. And then Wednesday, I will go live with tips and tricks and some titles that you can give so you can be the best book giver in your life. Thank you to everyone who joined me today. I will be posting this video on YouTube and archiving it on Facebook, so you can go back to it if you missed it or joined us late. I will be posting a list of the titles I talked about on our on our blog, and I will link that to Facebook, so you have places to get it. So thanks for listening today, and I will see you guys at the